animals was uncommon. He sees through their eyes. They see through his. They know his thoughts. I know his thoughts. They're disgusting. The disgusting things that Lou Malagrana does with beasts cannot be spoken of in this podcast. So join us as we drain your blood, damage your brain with mysterious green liquid, and leeches. I am Dr. Durant.
Friggin' Dar.
And I am Max. Not the one that's going to take you to the temple. Maybe.
And I'm just an Italian Lou Malagrana in a tracksuit and a friggin' baseball cap. Welcome to this edition of StarPod Logs The Beastmaster.
HBO. You know what HBO stands for, don't you? Hey, Beastmaster's on.
Nice.
How many times did that run? That was like, I swear to God, if HBO had like 14 shows a day, it was like on like 16 of them. I mean, it was like crazy. It was always on. It never stopped. Never stopped. All of them. Yeah. Yeah, that was some.
That's pretty wild. You know, I don't think I remember it being on HBO that much, but I do remember watching it a lot anyway, because so I probably would have enjoyed it. When I was watching, I remember watching it a lot on the VHS. You know, we get together and like that was one of the standards. You know, that along with some of the other classic movies from the time. You know, all the Star Wars stuff, Last Starfighter, Sword and the Sorcerer, Conan, and gotta have Beastmaster on there, and mostly because Tanya Roberts was in it.
She was awesome. I'll tell a quick story before we get too involved. So, because I've been like holding this to say it. So I went to a Chiller Theater show. So it had to be 2003 because Amanda was 5. We get in line. Tanya Roberts is there. She was probably, I don't know how old she was, maybe 50s. I'm not sure, but she still looked
smoking hot.
Yeah, still smoking hot. So I get there with my buddy. He wants her autograph. I'm like, okay. And I have my daughter. She was 5, so she's cute. She's in my arms. And as soon as we walked up, she gets out from behind the table and says, "Oh my God, she's so cute. Can I hold her?" Sure. Okay, go ahead. You know, take her. And that was about that. My daughter at that time got held by more celebrities than I've ever spoken to in my life. And yet she has no idea who any of them were because she was too young. But that's about as close as I ever got to being anywhere near the Beastmaster.
That's even better than taking a puppy to the park, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, little kids weren't great for that with women. They really did. I mean, but that was about it.
That's the thing with Beastmaster, and they talk about this. They're interviewing the producer of the movie, and it's from that great period in the 80s when fantasy was a subgenre. Kind of is now again with Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, but not like there were so many of these sort of
like then. Yeah.
Low rent fantasy movies like Conan the Barbarian, Beastmaster, Sword and the Sorcerer.
Red Sonja.
I remember the one that we really liked a lot was
Red
the
Sonja,
Deathstalker, because that just had tons of nudity in it. Like as kids, we'd always be renting that at the video store. We'd be like, you got to get Deathstalker.
But I think you left out Mac and Me. Didn't you leave out Mac and Me?
Mac and Me.
You rip off. The thing that looks, it looks like he's got a belly button for a mouth. Yeah, that one.
But Beastmaster, like all the films we've sort of been discussing recently, it just has a massive cult following over the years. I don't know how successful it was when it came out. I guess it must have done all right, but it's huge now. Like people revere that movie; they love it.
Yeah, that was.
It's got
go ahead.
Oh, it's got like a fantastic cast too, like you talked about, like Tanya Roberts, Mark Singer, which is interesting to talk about. Rip Torn. I love Rip Torn. Rip Torn is amazing in everything he's in.
And wait,
and who does he play in this movie? Rip Torn plays. Max.
He plays Max, and then of course John Amos plays Seth. Wasn't there a little kid that he traveled around with, or like a teenager or something that was by his side? I'm trying to remember. That might be having it mixed up with another. It's been so long since I saw it.
Yeah, but you were talking well, this movie came out, August 16th, 1982. And I'm looking at it. You happened to mention it, so I thought I'd just look it up. The budget on it was $9 million, and the box office was $14.1 million. So I would say even for that time, probably not what they would consider a massive success.
Right.
To make to spend 9 to get 14. Sure, it's
Yeah, but if you're
$5
on set
million
with
by the time
Tanya
you split.
Roberts the whole time, you'd be good.
Yeah. But Tanya Roberts is in this movie. Yeah, the ex,
Yes, she is.
what, Charlie's Angels, or think, and whatever else she was in.
And it's directed by Don Coscarelli, who is the guy that directed Phantasm and did all the Phantasm movies, which I love. That was the kind of interesting thing I found out about this article is I'm a huge horror fan. And when they're interviewing the producer here, he talks more about like all the horror movies he likes and what horror movies he thinks is great. And he produced this horror film called Evil Speak. And if you have never seen the film Evil Speak, it's a film with Clint Howard, Ron Howard's younger brother.
Oh no, the one that looks like he's deformed.
Yeah,
one?
the one that played on Star Trek. Like
he's also in like I don't know, he's in one of some space movie. He's working in the I don't know if it was Apollo or something where he's like in the NASA center, like controlling the rocket. I'm like, he just looks like he needs some surgery or something. I don't know.
Well, he's the one on he's the one in Star Trek. He's the little kid on the original Star Trek with the keeper figure is from.
You're shitting me.
That's
him. That little
Clint
kid.
Howard. Yeah, but they dub his voice.
I would have never figured that out.
Yeah.
No freaking way.
Yeah, and he was also on Gentle Ben. He was the kid on Gentle Ben. I don't know if you remember watching that show.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's crazy.
But he's in this movie called Evil Speak that the producer of. It's funny, they're interviewing him about Beastmaster, and he's really pushing this movie Evil Speak in the whole article. Like he's like, "Oh, you got to see this Evil Speak movie that I produced." Probably because Coscarelli was a big horror director too, so they seem to have more of a horror bent. And I haven't seen Beastmaster in a while, but that kind of has some horror in it. There's a lot of like creatures in there and things along those lines, aren't there?
Sword and Sorcery.
Sword and the Sorcerer was great.
That was a great movie. That was a great movie. But I just looked at this. I just looked at something here. So I don't know I'm assuming you guys know this because I didn't. So it said that the original film spawned 2 sequels, as well as a syndicated television series that chronicled the further adventures of what's his name again, Max? What's the guy's name?
Dar.
Freaking Dar. I can't say more than one syllable, so I'll just be Dar. It sounds like a pirate name.
Well, Well, I mean, a lot of these movies. I mean, these guys have these one syllable names. It's just one or two. Because you could never have 3, because that'd be a foreign film, right? But this one, I mean, the premise of the movie is really interesting, and it's based on a 1959 book called The Beastmaster. But it's you got this guy who can see, if an eagle is flying, he has the sight of that eagle, and communicates that way, and has to fight. But the part where it makes it hard. I mean, it's an interesting story. The scenery in it is great. For me, I just had a little bit of hard time, like you guys were talking about. Seeing, Mark Singer, who, I mean, he wasn't out of shape guy. It's not like me playing the Beastmaster or something like that. But he did seem, especially after we watched Conan and some of these other ones where you see these big Viking looking dudes, really buff, and he's just not.
He's a pretty boy in it.
He was, I mean, and I guess that's how we got Tanya Roberts.
But wasn't he in Rich, wasn't he in like a million films or
yeah,
no?
well, they mentioned here, like they mentioned that they found him here, that he was discovered, but he was on an episode of the Planet of the Apes TV series, one of my favorite episodes, The Gladiator.
Wasn't he the son of the guy that was like wrestling or something, or they were fighting or gladiator training?
It's called The Gladiators. Yep.
And he was really young. Yes.
Yeah, he's William Smith's son on that.
Okay.
And so they act like he never acted before in this article, but he was in tons. And they mentioned that he was in a TV movie where he played a male stripper for ladies only or something.
I don't really know if I'd call that acting, Rich. Maybe he really didn't act before, based on what he's doing there.
Well, and
Well, a
of
couple
course, he's
other
on
odd
one of the
things.
greatest sci-fi series of all time, V. Like he was
V,
in V,
yes.
which I love. Yeah.
I was just gonna say you got to mention that he was in V, and what I also is I was tootling around. I mean, did you know that he was in the TV miniseries Roots
Mark
No.
or
Singer
the
was?
sequel? Yeah, he was in the
Oh,
sequel to the
wow.
miniseries Roots as Colonel Wagner's elder son, is what it's saying.
Oh my God. So he was a bad
I
guy.
can't remember seeing him in that, but I do remember seeing him in V. Yeah.
And John Amos was in the original Roots, as well as Good Times.
John Amos,
Nice.
don't even get me started. They said he was such a bastard in real life. Like they said he was not even a really nice person, but
That's
he
why
was a
they
great
killed him
actor.
off on on Good
Yeah.
Times. They just
They
had him
said
get
he
hit
was
by a car or something like that.
mean. They said he was mean. They said he was mean.
Wow.
Yeah. Too funny.
And Rip
but-
Torn, he was a crazy guy in real life too. But I always thought his name was so funny. His name is Rip and Torn. Rip Torn.
What's his
Right.
real name? That's not his real name, obviously. What's his real name?
I don't know, to be
Rich,
honest.
you
with
have
I
to
always
Torn?
know that.
kind of was his
No
real
way.
name.
There's no way that's his real name, is it? No way. Who named that kid Rip Torn? Well, I guess there's somebody who would.
Who named the kid Max Overnighter, right? I mean, or Lou Malagrana.
Oh, Elmore Rual Torn Jr. Elmore.
Is it really Elmore?
Elmore, Elmore, and the middle name Rual, Torn Jr.
Wow.
A junior of all things. He's a junior. That's a pretty hardcore old school name.
Okay, when was Rip? I know we're getting crazy, but when was Rip Torn born? Because Elmore is, I mean, it's certainly not a name that you're gonna.
No,
Because I mean, he was definitely an older guy, when this movie came out in '82, so he was probably
almost his
born
birthday.
in the '30s.
February 6th,
He was born in
1931.
1931.
Yep.
Yep.
Almost his birthday, February 6th.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday, Rip Torn.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Elmore.
He's
Happy birthday. Anyway,
He
I still
died.
hey,
think
when
we
I'm
should
dead, you
focus
can
on
wish me happy birthday, and I won't mind.
I think we should focus on the Tanya Roberts part. Did we talk about her enough in this?
Tanya Roberts, did we mention her? Yeah, she's in this movie.
She was smoking. They gave her a good name too, Kiri. It's a great name
Kiri.
for her movie. Yeah.
Kiri and Dar.
That was something I always thought Rich could do. I thought Rich could see through animals' eyes or something like that. I thought that is.
I think he can.
That's why it was the mask, so he could see through other animals' eyes.
He's got the. I don't know about all that, but he can speak in other people's tongues.
Dr. Duran is also Dr. Doolittle. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. If I could talk to the animals, learn their languages. No, that's the wrong Beastmaster. Chatter with a chimpanzee. He's like,
No, I swear for the Beastmaster, I remember this scene where I think he's like standing and he's looking and the falcon or the hawk is like flying around and he's looking through his eyes and they had that really kind of like that like blurry around the edge camera where it was
right.
And then when they film Mark Singer, he has to like wipe his eyes because there's like tears from him like staring through the eagle's eyes or something. That's all I remember. I'm like, he's such a pretty boy. How's this guy like out crushing enemies? I'm like, whatever.
He was definitely oiled up in that too, like right, like he was always baby oiled up when they would come on screen, like glistening.
Well, he's using his cunning. It's and that scene you were just talking about. I mean, that kind of cinematography has been used in other movies as well.
Oh yeah,
with the being able to see through the eyes of an animal.
Oh, I bet the guy who invented that thought he came up with something real special. Then they probably had like 800 movies. How can we implement this into our movie? That kind of thing.
What I found great in the article is they talk about how they had to build this huge temple and all these pyramids and stuff like that. Like nowadays, they just throw these people on a soundstage with a green screen behind them, to be CGI'd. It's like, and that's the thing that's missing from movies. I don't want to be that old guy who's like, in my day, but it's like, at least it was real, right? Like you can see.
Wait a minute.
CGI.
When you went to the movies as kids, did you have to share one shoe between you and your 12 brothers and sisters to walk in the snow? Yeah. No, that's
uphill in the snow. It was uphill both ways, and he had a rock to play with.
But
he was glad to have it.
That Beastmaster, I can tell you, like Beastmaster was 82, right? So I had just kind of got back to the U.S. and we just kind of like my parents had just got divorced. And I remember sitting in front of that little 13-inch black and white TV with the cable box with the wire, and you'd have to push the button. To get really old. But that movie was on so much. I can't even tell you how many times I watched it. I really can't. I can't even tell you how many times I watched it.
Anybody that knows Beastmaster has always. I don't think I know anybody that actually saw it in the theater. Everybody's like, I saw it on HBO 100 times when I was a kid.
Just saying, did they even put it in the theater? No, just kidding.
Funny thing I found
for me.
Go ahead.
Well, for me, it was VHS, and yes, and we did have to be kind and rewind, and we rewound it and watched it over and over and over. You know,
it's so funny. If anybody here is under the age of 40, I guess, they're like, what the hell are they talking about? Be kind and rewind. What the hell is that? We're gonna charge you a 50-cent fee for not rewinding. That kind of thing. But no, I mean that movie was very iconic.
What I thought was funny in the article is they mentioned that they're talking to the producer, and he says, "Oh, I got a great cinematographer, John Alcott. He was the cinematographer for Kubrick for The Shining and Barry Lyndon." And then later on in the article, that they're talking to him and they ask him, well, what horror movies do you like? He's like, "Oh, I like The Exorcist and I like The Omen. That's really good. But you know what horror movie I don't like? I don't like The Shining. The Shining was a bad horror movie."
And that's the guy who's using it for the cinematography.
Isn't that the guy that's working on your movie that's doing the cinematography? But I mean, it probably different reasons why he didn't like the film, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Cinematography was great, but I hated the movie.
I hate the movie.
But this, I mean, for 1982, I mean, this was, I mean, hitting, like you were talking about, hitting the sweet spot, because Conan was out, Conan the Barbarian the same year. So many great movies. And what else did I see here? Hold on, I'm looking through here. Secret of the Nim, not necessarily, but in that fantasy
year after or something, right? Red Sonja was after that.
Yeah, Red Sonja was well after that.
After that.
That had to be after Rocky 5, because that was Bridget Nielsen played Red Sonja.
Oh my God! I do remember that. Holy crap! How do you remember that?
And then Schwarzenegger did a cameo in it.
Yes. Yeah, they were good. I don't know. I don't want to get too off topic, but I remember watching Conan when Schwarzenegger just smashed all those mirrors, and they interviewed him. He's like, "Oh yeah, those were real mirrors." He goes, "I wasn't comfortable doing that, smashing all those mirrors."
Smash the mirrors.
But you're not going to see. Yeah, I mean that's so in the Beastmaster. Like, what was his? I can't even think. Like, what was his most difficult challenge? I mean, like,
it was
when he looked
cleaning up after his panther.
I was gonna say, like, what was his
panthers?
Biggest, like,
whoa!
What were his big fights and stuff? Like, he wasn't slaying any hydras or smashing mirrors, or, I mean, he was just like, I don't know.
The evil army guys of Max.
Right.
I suppose,
Did he get into that role because he was an actor, didn't cost a lot, or did he know somebody, or was he just like, maybe like, oh, we got this pretty boy we can put in here, we'll oil him up and give him a big sword and a loincloth. That'll work well. We'll get some people.
That's the way they did a lot of those fantasy films back then. Yeah, it was just get a halfway decent looking dude, like a surfer dude, throw him in the movie.
That's true.
Put a guy in a monster mask.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. I mean, the attraction to a movie like that would probably be more. I would think with the target audience would be more guys than women. But you put the good looking guy in there for the eye candy to bring the female gender in. I mean, because otherwise I think. I would think they would have gone with a grittier looking actor.
Right.
I would think, maybe a bigger guy. Because I mean, how many action movies did we see with Bruce Lee? And Bruce Lee's not a terribly big guy either, but a different genre, But when you're talking about this, where he's some, vicious warrior guy, or supposed to be, some, hero of the day with a sword, you would think he would be a bigger guy.
You know who would have been a good Beastmaster?
Who's that?
Reeves. Steve Reeves.
I was gonna say Raymond Burr.
Oh,
Raymond Burr.
Oh my god.
It's no
He
Alibaba
defeated-
and the Seven
he defeated-
Saracens.
Oh. I'm actually gonna go watch before I go to bed. I don't know why, because I haven't slept, but I'm gonna go watch another one of those really cheesy Hercules movies. And
Yeah, those are fun
it's
to watch.
I'm Hercules, but look at my coif and my well-trimmed beard. But I'm from ancient times. The best part is they're all fighting in these bad movies, and they're all laughing about you know, I'm like, worst fight scenes ever. It's just, you know, to me actually, it's watching those things just cracks me up. I don't know why I watch them, but there's something about the cheese appeal to it. Maybe that's why I like the Beastmaster, because it's got a bit of cheese to it. You know,
Yeah.
if you
I guess they've always had.
And you
It's
know what?
always been a subgenre, right? The sword
Yeah.
and sandal.
Yeah. And it's a
Sure.
tough movie to find right now, too. Actually, if you're trying
It's
to
out
find a
on,
copy of it on.
I believe Vinegar Syndrome or Severin has it out on like a really deluxe Blu-ray, which is supposed to have a lot of
Oh,
good
really?
special features. Yeah.
it's pretty funny. I was like searching while we were doing this, see what kind of stuff was on there. They did have a good poster for it though. The poster was good. The eye with the,
Yeah, very almost
the
like
ring
Frank
with the eye.
Frazetta style artwork. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. It reminds me of the old those old what that guy's name? What's that guy's name? Boris Vallejo, whatever his name was, the guy that used to
Yeah,
do all
Vallejo
those fantasy.
or Frank Frazetta. Yeah, like those
Yeah.
those old paperback. Looks like one of the paperback novels you'd see, like one of the Ace paperbacks from in the science fiction section or
Yeah,
something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There we go. I am the Beastmaster.
Max, you had a story you were telling us about you and your friends when you would watch Beastmaster. That there's a certain scene in there, isn't there?
Yeah. There's there are lots of scenes in there. You know,
Was it
we
the
said,
Hawk scene?
yeah. Well, you could. I think it was a scene with Mark Singer and obviously Tanya Roberts, who I had you mentioned. Maybe you may have noticed if you watched the movie, she's smoking hot in this movie. And I think there was a point where I think Mark Singer also noticed that she was smoking hot and was maybe a little aroused. Well, yeah, we were sitting. Yeah, because that was something that
He was not
We used
mastering
to,
his loincloth snake.
I just say he didn't
He
master
was-
his beast that day.
You know, no, it was funny because like I said, we used to get together and watch VHS movies, and a lot of times when we'd get them, you know, so it was a lot of those '80s movies, and we weren't really too terribly opposed to piracy or whatever, but we'd take and hook VCR to VCR to VCR, and somebody'd have the original, and we'd play it and record it so that everybody had a copy of it that wanted one. And so I had a lot of tapes that had it, you know, that we recorded that way, and you know, we'd do them on different speeds so that, you know, there would be copies of copies, and they were a little grainy, but it was something to watch when you were in Greece. But you know, you get to get a bunch of guys, you know, together, you know, and drinking and playing puzzles and watching movies and recording movies, and somebody pointed that out, and you can't unsee that after you see it once.
Wow. Well,
It's like, hey, Mark, it's not polite to point.
Oh, Jesus.
I think it's the thing he's most well known for. He definitely goes around and does the conventions from it. But I would always prefer him for V. I love the TV series V. So, but
Yeah, that was a great series.
I think he does go around. You know, he runs the convention circuit now. As a matter of fact, one of the conventions I was at recently, not recently, maybe 10 years ago at this point, John Amos was there, and he was promoting Beastmaster. He had tons of Beastmaster photos to sign.
Oh, wow. Seth. I am Seth. Well, I hate to say we went a little.
Well, have we beat that horse to death, do you think?
I think we have to wrap it
How
up.
dare you, sir? How dare you throw an animal joke into our
Beast-
Beastmaster episode?
Beast, we were in beast mode, and we took some extra time, but that's okay. I think everybody gets a chance to enjoy it. The beast was unleashed.
It's time we leave this realm of fantasy and dust. I am Dr. Durant, also known as Rich Hurley. You can find me on Dr. Durant Sanctum on YouTube and Facebook at Dr. Durant Sanctum.
I'm Max Overnighter, storyteller, contributor, and all-around goof on the Facebook group Migo Like. I'm also around some of these other chat groups, podcasts, and so hey, if you happen to see me lurking in your site, feel free to stop by, say hi.
And I am Lou Melagrana, not the Beastmaster, and definitely not pointing at Tanya Roberts at this point. But you can find me on the Facebook group Migo Like or on YouTube My Migo Like, doing all kinds of fun stuff. And as usual, we really appreciate you guys listening and giving us the opportunity to speak. And I think other than that, anybody else have any last minute words on the Beastmaster? Rich, would you please stop looking through the eyes of the yak and pay attention to what we're doing here, for Christ's sake? We're trying to finish this podcast and you're looking through the yak. What could be so interesting that yak is showing you? Anything you want to share?
There's a female yak in heat ahead of us.
I'll have to drag you off to the temple and exact my revenge.
All right, let's sign off because they're going to kill us for going over. But other than that, we'll say goodnight. And anything else?
Good night,
Stay
everybody.
tuned to StarPod Log.